right, it is time for me to go into my book nerdy thoughts about episode 4 of season 2 of the Wheel of Time. And this episode was a banger. Okay, but before I get into this, just a little short announcement. I made a video about this, but some of you might not have seen it. I'm going on a trip. I have a trip coming up on Wednesday. I'm going to be visiting my family for 3 weeks. It's like going to take me 2 days of flights to get there and then 2 days of flights to get back. It's a big trip. So I don't know what sort of time I will have. I don't know if I'll be able to make content. I might have time, but I also might not. Like, I might not be able to even film reactions, in which case I just won't watch, which is going to be brutal. But I don't know if I don't have time. Like, if I don't get to film reactions while I'm on my trip, like I said, I won't watch, but I will film the reactions when I come back. There will just be a 3-week gap. Literally, this is a weird announcement because it's not an announcement with any firm details. Maybe I'll be making content like normal. Also, maybe I will disappear for 3 weeks, or maybe I'll be able to have time to do one, but won't have time to do others. I probably won't have time to do what this video is, which is me going over my 12 pages of notes, 12 on this episode. Like, I doubt I'll have time to sit down and write notes on an episode. But again, maybe I will. I don't know. I know nothing. So that is the warning. So that's the announcement, I should say. The warning is coming now, which is a spoiler warning. This video is going to have spoilers through to the end of the book series. If you don't want the story spoiled for you, and you don't watch this video. Cannot tell you how weird it feels as a YouTuber to be like, don't watch my video, but don't spoil yourself. But yeah, okay. With that, let's go. Before I get into it, as I've been doing and will continue to do, I encourage you to support the WGA and SAG-AFTRA. If you can, please consider donating to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation or the Entertainment Community Fund. The links to both of those are in the description below. They are helping to support the writers and the actors and other industry professionals who are not working because of the strikes, obviously. Basically, the studios, the AMPTP, have literally said that they're hoping that they can wait out to the writers and the actors until they start losing their homes. It's supervillain stuff. It's weird that they just said that out loud as if it was a normal, okay thing to say. So anyway, if you have the means, please consider donating, and let's get into this video.
Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy. Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy.
So, of course, these could just be weird rock formations, right? But I'm pretty sure they were going for ruins. And this building right here, this one with like the sharp angles, the triangle, this is the one I was saying, I think my avatar was covering it up, but this is the one I was saying reminds me of the Flatiron building in New York. Just look at the top of that building. Like, it's just a sharp triangle. It looks like the Flatiron building. And I love these hints to the books because this sort of thing happens in the books all the time. I've mentioned, like I said in the intro, I'm in the middle of a reread right now. And RJ does this. He'll mention something that it looks like a carved ear or a rock formation with oddly regular, sharp angles that look intentionally shaped. It's just built into the world. It's background. But, I love seeing how they're realizing it in the show. So I talked about this in my reaction to this clip when this clip got released, but that clip got removed from my channel. So I'll talk about it here. Pavara from Twitter of Time, she translated the poem that he's saying here in the Old Tongue. And it's pretty much that exact poem from the books. Like, it's just in the Old Tongue, which is incredible. And then, of course, the blood part comes in English. And it's amazing. Blood feeds blood. Blood calls blood. Blood is, blood was, and blood shall ever be. So gross. The obvious implication here is that this is the Quendiar moon dial that shattered, that Bail Domum was talking about, in episode 1. And I know this is obvious. This is not at all subtle, but it pleases me that Lanfear's seal was a moon dial. Like, Lanfear has some consistent branding. So one of the things I like about this scene, like, beyond just how good that wig is, like, it's a really good wig. Like, is that her real hair that they're just trying to make us think is a wig? Because it's a really good wig. But the set design in this, it encapsulates what Moiraine's household must be like. Like, it's still a noble household. They haven't had their titles removed from them. They have all the trappings of nobility, but everything here is faded. It's I mean, not her. That was a weird gesture, but like, everything in the set is faded. It's covered in dust. You can see that everything in this house was once of the finest quality, but you can also see that it's old. That like the set design in this scene, it tells a story and it's great. I just love moments like this when you're watching actors who are at the top of their game. Like she's trying so hard not to show her emotions. They're coming through. Like you can see she's trying to keep her face still, but her body is betraying her. And oh, it's great. It's great. The other thing that I like about this storyline, just, you know, with Moiraine and her baby sister, is that it's a continuation of what we saw with Liandrin. With the Liandrin and her son storyline, we saw how the extended life of the Aes Sedai hurts the Aes Sedai because everyone that they love grows old and dies. But here, with this storyline, we're seeing how the extended lives of the Aes Sedai hurt the people around them, because the Aes Sedai will almost inevitably withdraw because they can't really fit into the world, like into a world that lives at a pace that is too fast for them. Like people grow old, their children grow old and die. The Aes Sedai end up leaving people behind, and it hurts them. I'm sure not all Aes Sedai do this. In fact, in this very episode, we see that Alanna doesn't necessarily do this. I imagine a lot of Aes Sedai maintain contact for maybe a generation or so, because before it becomes too painful, or, you know, the family starts to feel too distant, like you are now dealing with great-great-grandchildren who look nothing like your children and whatever. But Moiraine, at least in the books, from the moment she became an Aes Sedai, she had a quest that basically ripped her away from any plans or life that she had and sent her out into the world. So yeah, she left everyone behind her. Now, some of that timing might not work with the books, because she has to be older than she is in the books, right? So, because if she's older than this woman, she's not like in her 40s. So we are changing the ages of the Aes Sedai, which I'm okay with. But even in that case, I can see Moiraine wanting to pull back because she didn't really want to be part of this nobility. And then once the thing happens with her family, yeah, why would you, like, if you have an opportunity to leave at that point, when, you know, the stuff that her sister starts talking about, people spitting in your eye, like, you know, it's really horrible to leave your sister to deal with that. But I understand the reflex to go, you know what, I'm an Aes Sedai, I have other things to deal with. I don't need to deal with everyone in Cairhien hating me. But yeah, Moiraine left her family, her background, her household duty. She left it all behind. And you can see here how it's hurt her sister. You know what I noticed in the shot? The colors around Nynaeve's wrists. Now, in the books, this is true, actually. The accepted dress has bands of color at the hem and on the cuffs. But in the show, they've gone for just the cuffs. And I really kind of wish that I could talk to Pez about this, like ask her about it. I mean, I could ask her about it, but I can't ask her about it really on my channel because she's the one who I did those costume videos with, by the way, in season 1. But until the strike's over, basically, we can't have discussions about this. But I feel like this was a decision made like in the costuming just because of the filming, basically. Like, you wouldn't want a band of bright colors at the bottom of a white dress, I think, because it would be distracting. It would draw the eye away from the actor's face, which is, you want people looking at the face. Like, that's where the action is, right? Plus, if you like don't frame them properly, you would cut the bands off kind of in the middle, which would make them look kind of weird. So you would have to consider the bands of the dress whenever you were framing shots. I think, like, this is, I don't know. I don't normally think about costumes, but these days I am. And so that was me going, I wonder why they changed it. Oh, I bet because of that. Like, A, you don't want to distract from the actor's face, and B, you don't want to have to consider a very distinct and eye-catching costume thing when framing a shot. Also, I just like the way it looks. Those bands of colors look cool. It's not how I imagined it. In fact, I don't think I ever did, but I think they look cool. Egwene in this moment, she's saying, it's all right now. It's all right. It wasn't real. None of it was real. And, Egwene, this is not the comforting thought that you think it is. Like, that was Nynaeve's child, her husband, her friends, her family. She lived this experience. And telling her that the child that she loved, like, that was real love, that child was not real, it's not helpful. I think I've said this before, but one of the things I find a little bit irksome in the books is the way the women snipe at each other. It comes to me largely without cause, or the cause is petty. It feels stupid. Like, it doesn't feel like something that grown-ass women should be sniping at each other like that about. Like, they're adults. They're not 12. Like, this is whatever. But these sort of things, a jealousy that, you know, to be quite fair, is somewhat justified. Like, people do keep throwing Nynaeve is the most powerful channeler, blah, 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 into Egwene's face. Like, that's, her jealousy is not completely without cause. And then something like this, a hurt that is so deep that Nynaeve is feeling here, but that she doesn't share because, well, it's a really intimate and personal pain, but it's also the position that Nynaeve is in. Like, she was the wisdom. She sees herself as Egwene's protector. So exposing her own weakness to her would feel wrong. Like, that's not, the roles should go the other way. So Nynaeve has this incredibly intense pain that Egwene doesn't fully understand. And so Egwene is saying all the wrong things. These are real things that happen with real people, with real adults. This, to me, makes more sense for showing cracks in their relationship. Now, I'm perfectly, like, I would be happy if we don't get the fractures that we see in the books between the women, especially between Egwene and Nynaeve. There's things that happen there in the books that I don't particularly like. So if they don't do that, that's fine. But if they do, and this is like where we're like the foundation for those cracks are this instead of the ridiculousness that I see in the books, that will make me happy. It's staying true to the story without making the women look dumb. And the transition from like that heartbreaking scene to this one with Lan with his long hair down, walking, they knew what they were doing, right? But this is not that. This is not like a memory that Nynaeve has of her time in the Arches. This is real Lan with Alanna and her warders. And okay, this is very, very different. Lan has actually left Moiraine. Well, I mean, she sent him away, so he hasn't really left. And I talked about that in a video, just the Moiraine-Lan dynamic, but this is very, very different. I think I see what they're doing here. Like, they're breaking them up so that when their reunion happens, it will be satisfying. Like, when their reconciliation happens, when Nynaeve, when Moiraine finally basically talks to him and reveals her vulnerabilities, and he comes to, like, my impression is that Lan is going to come riding in on a big black horse just in the nick of time, and we'll all go, yes, because the team is back together. And then Moiraine will basically be as honest with it. Like, it will feel more earned than if they were just like, okay, we're fine now. That's what I think we're doing here. I may end up saying this every single time Alanna is on screen, but like, how the hell is she so likable? Why is the show making me like people that I hate? This is so mean. But okay, Alanna here says, if anyone says anything about the salt, I will light you on fire. And obviously, this is not true. Like, even if she meant it, like, even if she actually was thinking, if you say it, I'm going to be so mad, I'm going to light you on fire. She couldn't do it unless the person complaining about the salt was shadow spawn or threatening her or her warder's life or whatever. I only bring this up because while I can't think of a specific example right now, I'm pretty sure that in the books I found moments where Aes Sedai, who are not Black Aja, say things like this. Things that are obviously not true, but also obvious to everyone that the Aes Sedai is joking, I guess, or that it's a figure of speech or whatnot. So unless the show has decided to make Alanna Black Aja, which I strongly doubt, and this is the way they're hinting at it, I think this is just, A, it's a charming line for her to say to make me like her, and stop it, Joe. But also B, just showing us that metaphor and figures of speech don't count as lies. The other thing I will note here is that this scene appears to be the Mosfani family. This is Alanna's family, or at least like it's her friends, and they are not channelers. These are not channelers here. So Alanna hasn't pulled away, at least not yet. And it makes me wonder if in the show she is younger than, say, a Liandrin, who is old enough to have an 80-year-old son, or, you know, Moiraine, who, well, we don't know exactly how old Moiraine is, but her sister, like, that's her baby sister that we saw earlier. So, yeah, I'm wondering, like, because this is a difference. This is a big difference between how these various Aes Sedai are living. Alanna is still grounded. She's still living in the real world, so to speak. This particular cousin asks, where does the third one go? Ma'am? That's personal. So this scene is confirmation that Alanna is Morel, right? Like if the last episode wasn't enough for you. Alanna and Lan are talking about how her and her warders are trying to basically keep Lan's spirits up. They're constantly watching him. Like they're doing the thing that Morel does in the books. They're trying to keep him alive, basically. And Alanna cuts him off at this point and says that she doesn't think Lan is going to, I'm so afraid of the algorithm. He's not going to do the thing, right? You know what I mean? That was Morel's specialty in the book, saving warders whose Aes Sedai had died. Now, she used some questionable means, to put it mildly. Consent is vital. But like that was, the Morel thing was just violation upon violation, right? Like Lan had his autonomy violated by passing the bond without his consent in the first place. And then Morel violates him by literally violating him. So, it's not a great situation. Here, Alanna doesn't do that. And again, so far, I'm really, really liking Alanna. She's just trying to keep him happy. And she's reasoning with him, talking with him, being upfront and open and honest. And like, there is no manipulation happening in this conversation right now. She's just being honest. This conversation also continues to make me just sure, even more sure, that Moiraine is just shielded. Lan does not yet appear to be having a death wish. He is not going crazy. He's fine. He just no longer feels the bond. But the bond is still there because Moiraine isn't stilled. Alanna tells Lan here that Nynaeve is going through the arches. And again, this feels like a sort of funhouse mirror reflection of something that happens with Morel. Morel is trying all of her methods to save Lan from himself, and it's not working. And Morel is also obviously trying to prepare Nynaeve for Lan and Lan for Nynaeve. Like she's trying to prepare them for each other when the time is right. One of the things I actually find funny, if I can like forget what a gross person Morel is how she starts being super hard on Nynaeve. And Nynaeve is so frustrated because she has no idea why or what she's done to offend her. And like, it's never stated outright, but it's so clear to me that what Morel is doing is going, okay, I'm going to make sure you're ready to take the bond when it's time. But anyway, all of Morel's methods aren't working. And Egwene shows up and says, okay, Nynaeve needs you. And suddenly Lan has focus and purpose. This is different, of course. This Lan here does not appear to be as lost as Lan in the books, again, because Moiraine is neither dead nor stilled. But this is a dim reflection of that scene. Alanna here is going, okay, you seem fine. Nothing we are doing seems to be helping your situation, though, so I'm going to point you towards Nynaeve. Maybe that will help. This was a fun scene to watch on a rewatch, because the first time around, I was totally paying attention to Alanna. Like, she's the one talking, and, Priyanka Bose is, she's eye-catching, shall we say. But on a rewatch, I found myself watching Lan, because Alanna is telling a story here that she only knows from the outside. Something happened to Moiraine 20 years ago. She has no idea what. But Lan, he knows. So seeing him try to process this story, like he's now getting an outside perspective from someone else on a story that he knows from the inside. And I feel like this moment, like this conversation, is part of what's going to spur him to go to Moiraine, to remind him of him and Moraine's shared purpose. Moiraine here having her what might have been moment, and again, just compliments to whoever put this set together. It truly it conveys what her station is and what it was. And this like little smile that she gives, it kind of breaks my heart, because you can see her going, oh yeah, no, this isn't right. Like it's just, it's good. The set design, the acting, the costuming, it's mwah. And then she's looking at this painting of her with her sister as children, and you see this moment of warmth on her face. But when she leaves the room, her sister is there. Like she sees her sister talking with, I guess, their manservant or whatever. Watch Moiraine steel herself and then just like run out of the door. I mean, not run, but she walks very, very purposefully out of the door and goes on with her mission. Moiraine is nothing if not focused. They're showing us things in the show that I've mentioned it before. I'm on this reread right now, and Moiraine is obviously a much larger character in the show than in the books. But because the show has put Moiraine in the forefront in my mind, when I'm reading the books, I'm paying so much more attention to her now than I ever did before. And this sort of focus, this sort of, okay, I must do it. This is very true. Like, this is who she is. Moiraine has a goal, and she's going to do anything and everything in her power to achieve it. The show, by showing us the things that she has given up in service of that goal, this life, her family, and of course, like Swan, it's heightened this quality that was always there, that this quality is very, very evident in the books. Okay, so this is fascinating. Moiraine is the one who got Logain to Cairhien then? I mean, I guess she just hoped that Rand would find him, or maybe she found a way to nudge Rand in that direction. Although, okay, I don't know how, given that Rand just sort of ran off after the Eye of the World, but this does definitely feel like a Moiraine thing to do. She has plans on plans on plans. But what truly fascinates me about this is how the show has been having Selene, or I mean, we can say it now, Lanfear, sort of mirror Moiraine with both of them always wearing blues, and they're both doing the same sorts of things to Rand, but from opposite sides. They're trying to steer him in opposing directions indirectly. And the show is giving us like very clear visual cues on that. Like later in this episode, we have Rand grab Moiraine by the neck the way he grabbed Lanfear a few episodes ago. They're making very clear parallels between these two characters. Now, what makes this particularly fascinating to me is that in the books, it's Lanfear who gets Rand a teacher. And here we have Moiraine orchestrating things around so that Rand can have this teacher. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I don't think Moraine's plan is going to work. Logain can't channel right now, and he's half mad. Plus, I'm fairly certain that Asmo is actually going to be in the show because he was one of the idols that Stepan had in episode 5 of season 1. But this is still interesting to me. This is, again, another parallel that they're showing us between Moiraine and Selene or Lanfear. And also, so I just from a show-watching perspective, without any book knowledge, this is a cool twist, right? Like, we saw Rand work his way up to get here, but then to find out here, oh, it's Moiraine that did this. Okay. But from a book reader perspective, I find it fascinating. Like, I know some people are very, very upset about changes. To me, what I'm finding fascinating is how they are taking elements from the story and then moving them around. So they're still there, but they're just in different places or maybe different orders or just, I don't know. I right now, I still have faith that they are on the road to the same place as the books end up. So for now, the changes are, to me, I'm going to use that word again. It's fascinating. They fascinate me. If we get to the end and it turns out they've like completely dismantled characters that I care about, or the story becomes unrecognizable, then, you know, that will have a retroactive effect of making these changes, you know, my feelings on these changes will change. But right now I can't make a call. And right now I'm enjoying them because it's like, ooh, I know what that is, but you've moved it here. Oh, okay. Like I don't know. It's like watching a strategy. Like, I don't know. I'm fascinated by what they're doing with this. Moiraine also says here that the Browns and Yellows wanted to study him and he would not have enjoyed it. Why? Like, I don't think either the Yellows or Browns would be cruel to him, but also, okay, the Browns and the Yellows in the show are doing more than they did in the books, because in the books, they just sort of have people like novices or accepted watching Logain in the Great Hunt, so that he doesn't do the thing that Moiraine sort of offers him in the next scene or later on in this scene. But they're treating him kindly, but that's it. No one is actually trying to see if anything can be done to help him, because the Browns and the Yellows and all of the Ajahs just, in fact, they've just given up on him, on male channelers. And like, I know it's been 3,000 years, but hello, research. Like, as much as I do fully think that the job that the Reds do is really, really important, it's essential, it's an unavoidable necessity of the world, this cruelty that happens to the men who can channel, I think the way that they just sort of give up on those men after they're gentled, it's a blight, it's a stain on the White Tower. Even if there is no cure for this sort of depression, and to be perfectly honest, I don't know that there would be. Like, I feel like RJ very much made this whole situation with male channelers to be an unsolvable problem, like until it's, you know, solved. But like until, you know, book 10 when it's solved. But you shouldn't give up. These men, they're human beings with worth, and So the fact that nobody, like, they just stopped. In the books, they talk about how they worked on it for 300 years and then they stopped. Like, that's bad. I will say, though, I am blaming the Black Aja for this. That is my theory. Okay, so when I rewatched this scene for taking these notes, I do think that Moiraine orchestrated this, that she did this on purpose, but I also just want to point out, Moiraine never says outright that she sent Logain here. It is heavily implied, but heavy implications are where Aes Sedai wordplay lives. So I'm just going to point that out. This is dark. This is dark as fuck. Like, Moiraine says here what all those who are cut off from the one power desire most of all. And then she shows this knife. So, yeah. Once again, talking about the thing I can't talk about on YouTube really without monetization issues. But this is dark, obviously, because of what it says about Logain's mental state. But Logain isn't one of our main characters. Moiraine is. And Moiraine has been cut off from the one power. Like, at least she can't touch it right now. She also can't lie. So if she's telling us that all who have been cut off want this, she's telling us that she wants this for herself too. Like, there's a moment she looks down at the knife and I'm reading longing in her eyes. But then she pushes through it again because, again, Moiraine, motherfucking Damodred, has a fucking purpose and she's going to do whatever she can to achieve it. Rand is staying at an inn in the Foregate called the Crescent. Lanfear, you are so extra, so extra. This scene, okay, I've read these books so many times, and there's a certain point where you start to think, I've had every Wheel of Time thought that can be possibly had, and then this scene happens, and this scene made me think of something I've never thought of before. In the books, when it comes to, like, warders and Aes Sedai and picking each other, the focus is always on the Aes Sedai picking their warders and what they want in a warder. They go to the practice yards and they all go the warders. They surround Galad and whatever. There is no talk that I can remember in the books of warders trying to pick their Aes Sedai. Now part of this is, quite frankly, that we don't really spend time with the warders in the books at all, or in the minds of any warders that aren't Lan, especially not any warders who are in training. So there's no way for us to get this perspective. But, like, I never even thought about this perspective. The boys in warder training, most of them, not all of them, like we have Gawain and Galad there, who I don't think necessarily wanted to be warders, but most of the people in warder training, they do want to be warders, and I can't imagine that they'd all just sort of passively wait for any Aes Sedai to just snap them up. They must have hopes and things that they want in the Aes Sedai that they end up bonded with. So yeah, I like the scene. Nynaeve's got a reputation, and the warders, they want to snap her up. And then we get Liandrin here. She's so pleased to see Nynaeve reject the warder's overture. But then she gets this message, and it kind of throws her off balance. Do we think this is an Ishii message? Or, like, you know, telling her that she has to go to Falma, or as the show says, Falm, which sounds weirdly abbreviated to me, even though that last sound, the Falm, that last sound is not really a syllable, but whatever. Anyway, do we think that that's what this is, a message from Ishii to her? Or do you think it's just like this is what's happening in Falma, and because she already has instructions from Ishii, like, when you get this, you need to put these events into motion? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think this is? Like, the connection between this scene and the next scene makes it obvious that that letter is about the attacks in the West, but I don't know. I wonder if it's about if it has instructions in it as well, because the way it comes on the heels of her looking at Nynaeve with pride, and you see this expression on her face afterwards when she looks at the letter of just like, oh fuck, I like her, but damn it, I have to do this. Like, I don't know. What do you think? So Liandrin says here, if she falls, you'll fall too. And yeah, obvious foreshadowing is obvious. I still do not think that Liandrin is going to be Elaida. I mean, she sort of reveals herself as Black Aja, first of all, at the end of this episode. Not to everyone, but I don't think that that's information that will be contained. But I've also never thought that they were going to merge those two characters. I feel like Elaida and Liandrin play such different roles in the story, and merging them would sort of dilute them both. If part of what makes Elaida so interesting to me is that she is awful, but she is not evil. And like Liandrin in the books, she is awful and evil. Liandrin in the show, she's unpleasant, but she's not awful. She is nuanced and weirdly empathetic, but she's also evil. This section to me was the weakest part of the episode, which is not to say that it was bad. Like the rest of this episode to me was pretty much at a 10, and this section felt more like a 7 or an 8. We need this explanation, and I think it's done all right, but I don't know. I don't know if I was just expecting too much from this. This is a very, very hard thing to translate to screen. But this section, it was, to me, it was fine. It was just not spectacular. When I say hard to translate to screen, I don't just mean the visuals. Like, I don't know about other people. I haven't watched anybody else's like videos or reactions yet. I like to get my own thoughts down before I watch anybody else's. But like, to me, these visuals that they do with the vision, like the stag and all this stuff here, it's great. I have no problem with it. But so much of what is communicated to Perrin in the books is done in metaphors and feelings that he has in his mind. We can't say those things out loud in the show. So they are trying to condense it and convey it in the best way that they can. And what it ends up feeling like to me, it ends up feeling sort of compressed, like truncated. And a lot of things in this story, in the show, have to be truncated. Like we have 15 books. We don't have time. We have to truncate things. But most of the story so far hasn't felt like that to me. Whereas this discussion, this explanation of what Wolf Brothers are, it just was like, okay, I guess we're getting the Cliff's Notes. I mean, okay, I say that, and to be fair, I have no idea what they could have done to give this explanation of this ability the sort of epic, lyrical feel that I get from the wolf sections in the books. I honestly do not know if it is even possible to communicate that in this new medium. So it might just be the best thing to get the information out there as efficiently as possible so that we can get on to Perrin's story. And also, to be fair to this section, I don't know that it would have stood out to me so much in a different episode because the rest of this episode is stellar. So maybe this section stood out to me for being fine as opposed to stellar. That all having been said, I did laugh at this moment where the show is basically just talking to the people who have not read the Wheel of Time books. They must have watched reaction and been like, oh, everybody thinks that Perrin's a werewolf. No, he's not a werewolf. Here, Elias says here that we don't go near women who can channel. And this makes me wonder if show Elias is going to have the same backstory as book Elias. In the books, he was a warder who figured out he was a wolf brother and he had to escape because the Red Sisters were trying to gentle him. I think he killed some warders when he was trying to escape. I'm pretty sure he's actually still bonded to his Aes Sedai in the books, but I think the bond is masked. But anyway, I'm just curious what his background is going to be, if he's going to have any at all. Like, he's not a main character, so maybe he doesn't need that detailed background, but I don't know. I'm curious. And also, for all that I've said, this section was not my favorite in this episode. I actually got a little teary when Hopper introduced himself. Hopper! That's you. It's Hopper. So, okay, Lan must have read this poem before, right? Like, he's looking shocked by the contents of this poem, but this can't be the first time he's reading it. Also, just going to say, you cannot convince me that Moiraine hasn't noticed this poem is missing. So she's just sort of, decided that it's, oh, maybe I dropped it? Or she's, banking on Lan showing up, following? Or am I not supposed to be thinking about this? Am I overthinking things? So this conversation between Maxim and Lan got me thinking about the future. We all know that in the books, Alanna does something horrible to Rand later on, and there's no excuse for what she does, like absolutely none. But there are circumstances surrounding it that can sort of explain her thought process. As fucked as her thought process is, it does not an excuse, but maybe an explanation. And that is that Alanna lost a warder. I don't know if in the books if it was Maxim or Ivan, but she lost a warder. And the show has made a point of showing us what it is like for the warder when they lose their Aes Sedai. But so far, we have not seen it from the other side. The Aes Sedai, unlike the warders, they don't go into like a self-destructive rage, but they do go into, I mean, obviously they grieve because they lost a friend, but some of that grief is magical. It is something beyond normal grieving. It's an unnatural level of grief. And we know this because of what happens with Swan. Swan, for some reason, completely forgot that she had a warder and had lost her warder until she got her power back. And then suddenly the grief slams into her. Now, of course, as I said, this is not at all a justification for what Alanna does, but giving us this information about Maxim, like maybe being, not but they're masking the bond, makes me think that he's going to be the one in the show who dies. Like I said, I can't remember which one dies in the books, but because, in the books, Alanna is not nearly as interesting as she is in the show. But what I think right now, my crack theory is that Alanna is going to blame some of it on this, like this whole thing where the bond is masked the majority of time. That, they talked, he didn't like having someone in his head. So in a very adult and mature conversation, considering everyone's autonomy, including the warders, they made a decision about masking the bond. And I'm wondering if there's going to be a thing where, because of this, because of her respecting his choice and his autonomy and his right to consent to things, he ends up in a situation where there's danger and she's unaware of it because the bond is masked. And that's how he dies. Not an excuse, but that mixed up with the magical grief, I can see that really warping her thinking and leading her into doing the awful thing that she does. Okay, so because of those costume videos that I did with Pez, I find myself paying attention to things that I never would have before. This hairpin that Moiraine has, I couldn't, it's so distinct that I thought it has to mean something. And I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, but the thought that I had is that Avendorl Dara, whatever, is that the tree? Is that like a symbol of the tree? Oh man, this moment. Celine, okay, let's call her who she is. Lanfear is joking with Rand about being a kid who has no past. And he says, you'd be surprised. And you see her. She looks off to the side. Her expression changes. And she kind of steels herself. And she literally swallows her rage at the thought of Rand being with someone else. Look at that. Look at that. This is so good. This is so good. If you want something, you have to take it, she says. And yeah, this again, it's so good. In the books, Lanfear is all, think of the glory, Rand. And it's a strategy, and it's, it's a wrong strategy. It's not really going to work on our beloved Rand. He's not the type who thinks of the glory. And even this, I don't think it's going to work, because Rand is not the type who would be all, okay, I don't need to think about others. I'm just going to take what I want. But I do think, it's a more subtle way of doing that thing that Lanfear is trying to do in the books. Like, I think in Lanfear's mind, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from just take what you want to take the power, take the glory. And she's working on him here. She's working on him. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love this pairing. Like, I don't think I would have thought of this. And I don't know if this was in the writer's original plan for what these characters were going to do. I know they had to probably rework a lot of things to adjust for what happened with the Matt actors and stuff. But I don't even remember if in the books Matt and Min interact very much. Like, I know they meet, but I don't know that they spend a lot of time together. But I do feel like, knowing both of their characters as I do, that this is how they would be if they did, especially early Min. Like early Min, before she starts wearing tight pants and grinding on Rand during meetings. Early books Min and post-Dagger Matt, I feel like they would be fast friends. I think they have like a similar sense of humor, a similar sense of Matt will always go there for his friends, even though he doesn't want to believe it. And she is the same. Like, she was always going to help, even though she said, oh, I'll just do what I want. I want to wear the clothes I want. I want to do what I want. But she will still go and help her friends. I think there's a lot of similarities between them. So even though I know something like nefarious is happening here with, Min and Liandrin having put this together, seeing Matt and Min together, it kind of brings me joy. Like, I like that they're friends. Like, they're my fictional friends. And so it's nice to see my friends getting along with my other friends. Oh, and of course, in the scene, Matt, unlucky with dice, which, is fun because, So, okay, how I've mentioned a couple of times that I'm in the middle of a reread. Well, I just finished The Dragon Reborn, last 2 days ago. And I realized or noticed something this time around that I had not noticed before. Okay, so, how I've referred to Nynaeve's fighting style as Apricot face punch, by which I mean there are at least 3 instances in the books where she's fighting another channeler, and instead of using the one power, she uses physical violence. And 2 of those instances happen in The Dragon Reborn. The first of those is some of the Black Azure sisters come in and they capture our girls. It's Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine. And Nynaeve, when fighting them, punches one of them in the face. And she literally knocks her on her ass. Like, it says in the text that the Black Azure sister falls on her rump. And every time I've read this, I've just been like, yes, Nynaeve punched one of the Black Aja sisters. This time around, I'm reading the book while watching this season of this show. And you know what I noticed? The sister that Nynaeve punches in the face, it's fucking Liandrin. I've never noticed that in the books, because in the books, Liandrin is kind of a one-note character. She's unpleasant. She's evil. That's pretty much it. No real nuance to her. All the Black Aja sisters are evil, and they're all just pretty much interchangeable in my mind. I don't care, or didn't care, which one of them Nynaeve punched. And so, it was just cool to see that she punched one of them. Well, when this jumped out at me this time around, I had to pause the audiobook because my brain just went nuts. I think the show is very much doing this on purpose to build towards a conflict later. Like, not just what we see at the end of the episode. I think that these two characters are going to be long-term antagonists. Now, okay, while I'm at it, I'm going to just put out my other theory that I came up with when my brain was just going, like, just neurons connecting everywhere. Okay, when the girls are captured in the stone, again, end of the Dragon Reborn, Egwene managed to shield two more of the Black Aja sisters in Tel'aran'rhiod. But doing that doesn't actually release the shields on Elaine, Egwene, and Nynaeve. One of the Black Aja sisters is still able to maintain the shield, right? So they're locked in a cell in the stone. They get out of the stone because, Mat comes and he opens the door. I mean, he does, he does a lot of brave stuff to get there. It irritates me. Everybody forgets that the girls were fighting to escape themselves. The way people talk about it in the fandom is if the girls were just sitting there in the cells, just waiting passively for one of the big, strong men to come and save them. No, that literally they had done a lot of the work, and Mat comes and he opens the door. And so anyway, when Mat opens the door, they go outside, and Amiko, that's the Black Aja sister, she's sitting there outside of the cell, and she's the one who's maintaining their shield. But because of what Egwene did to her in Tel'aran'rhiod, she is stuck between, like, halfway between asleep and awake, in and out of Tel'aran'rhiod, and she's like, there's a weird thing happening with her. But she is still able to maintain the shield. And because she's shielded herself, like Egwene shielded her, she can't release the shield on them. It's kind of a mess. They, like our girls, can't release her because she's Black Aja, right? And if they do, she'll probably do something evil. But they can't just leave her like that, because as long as she's there and as long as she's stuck in this state, they will be shielded, right? So Nynaeve, once again, reaches into her arsenal of weapons and pulls out her Abraca face punch, and she punches Amiko. And this is one of my favorite things. She stills her. Nynaeve punched the ability to channel out of Amiko. I mean, obviously, it's because she was knocked out while in that state. Like, Amiko probably didn't release the source properly, and that's what caused her to be stilled. But it was Nynaeve's fist that caused that to happen. Now, to be frank, I doubt, even if the theory that I'm about to tell you about is right, that it would happen in that way. It might look kind of silly on screen to have, like, punch in the face, whatever. But my theory is that we are going to see something like this where Nynaeve stills someone. And I think it's going to be Liandrin. Like, imagine that. It's so much more interesting to have her still Liandrin, someone that she has a relationship with, a sincere, deep, like, they're friends. They're friends. A friend who betrayed her. It's going to be so much more interesting than stilling generic Black Aja sister number 5. And not only that, it would be stilling Liandrin, of all people. It's a red sister who seems to get some sort of sick pleasure out of gentling men. She would get stilled by her protege. Oh my God, if I'm right, that is so good. Okay, I'll talk about the scene that I actually have playing here in the background instead of my crack theories. This is wild to me. First of all, Liandrin here is so freaking empathetic. Like, she is being open and she's listening. She doesn't say that bullshit about, like, your fears are your own property. She asks Nynaeve to open up, and she opens up. She shares something deeply personal. Oh, okay. That actually reminds me, something I wanted to point out that I noticed rewatching episode 4. Notice the two sisters who say that weird shit, like your fears are your own property, or your grief is your own. It's Cairhien and it's Liandrin. I feel like this is just another way that the Black Aja is corrupting the tower, making these women think that they need to isolate themselves, to hide their fears, hide their grief. It's like a mental health sort of corruption. But Liandrin here, she isn't doing any of that. She's being a good friend, a good sister. It's really alarming. And then this manipulation happens. Show Liandrin is really good at predicting what Two Rivers people are going to do, it seems. She knew that Matt wouldn't go to Egwene and would go back to Min. Here she knows that telling Nynaeve about what's happening with the Seanchan and Perrin and whatever would get not only Nynaeve to go to Falma, she knew that she seemed to know anyway that it would get Nynaeve to tell Egwene, and she knew that Egwene would go with her. Like she's like a puppet master here. It's remarkable. So I've already complimented the set design. Like it's amazing. Everything, like it tells a story. It's again, you can see that it's old, but you can also see that it's quality. It's telling the story of this fallen house. It's also telling the specific story of this fallen house. Look at that. Did you catch that? Avendor Dara. Avendor Dara, it's the tree! It's the tree! So we get a mention of dear Uncle Layman here, and I'm wondering if we're going to get the story of Layman's sin this season or next season. Right now, I'm inclined to say next season because it's very, very closely tied with the Aiel story that we're going to get next season, right? And I think with Moiraine being a very large character in the show, much larger than she is in the books, showing how she is directly tied with that story, I think, and tied with the events that set this whole story in motion, not even just that she heard the prophecy, but literally, like her close blood relative, her uncle, was the person who like flipped over that first domino that set the... He's the one who started them on the road to the last battle. Rand would literally not have been born if Moraine's uncle hadn't decided to cut down a tree. Now, I could be very, very wrong about this. She is in Cairhien right now. It could come up very naturally this season, but my prediction is just because of how tied in that story of her uncle is with the Aiel, and I think next season is going to be our big Aiel season, then that's when it's going to come up. What do you think? And here she says, my son is going to marry the queen. So yeah, Cairhien has a queen. This is what I was saying. I know some people were pushing back on me saying this, saying that they like the queen that they were mentioning could have just been the king's husband or the king's wife. Sorry. But that doesn't make sense to me. Like a show has to choose the words that people say. And so if they wanted us to think that Cairhien had a king, they should have had people saying king, not queen. The reason they said queen was for us to think that Cairhien had a queen. Like you have to pick the words people say, so it's not accidental. And this, of course, this confirms it. This is a choice that the show has made. Like I don't know why they've made this choice. I don't know. I'm wondering where they're going with it. My theory initially about Cairhien and Andor being merged, it's fine if the queen is just Morghese, but it's also not a particularly interesting theory. The only reason I had that theory was because I thought, well, that would simplify things. It'd give us less nations to think about. But her saying this makes me think that they're trying to do something interesting. So that makes me think my theory, my boring theory, is not the case anymore. So I'm wondering what interesting thing they're doing. One of the theories I've seen in the comments is that the queen is Colivir, which could be interesting and could set up some things for later. So that is the best that I have right now. Do you have any other thoughts? The scene where Nynaeve basically kicks Elaine out of her own room by just staring at her. It reminded me of that scene where Nynaeve kicks Gawain and Galad out of her room by doing that, I'm a teacher. It's a time-tested trick of just counting. I don't know. It made me wonder where the boys are. I know they've been cast. I've seen pictures. Are they going to be in this season? Have I missed something? Okay, so after Nynaeve tells Egwene about Perrin and Loyal, and Egwene says she's coming with them, Nynaeve says she knows a safe way out. Right? This is obviously this tunnel that she's found because she followed Liandrin in episode 2. And I have to say, I feel a little bit better about one of my theories. Okay, from the trailer, I don't know if you remember how hard I went on that scene where Liandrin is turning around, and she has this look on her face like, I was certain that was her leading the girls, like all these 3 girls, to the ways. Now, I was very wrong about that. She was meeting the man in North Harbor, but the reason I feel a little bit better about it is because I feel like I was interpreting her facial expression correctly. It was exasperation. It was frustration, because I am now like 99% certain that everything that happened in that episode was on purpose. I thought that Nynaeve followed her on and Liandrin didn't intend for that to happen, but now I think it was on purpose. Liandrin told Nynaeve to come find her, but then she wasn't there. She left the tower through a secret tunnel, going just slow enough for Nynaeve to be able to see her, but not so slow that Nynaeve would realize that she was being lured. And so that look that Liandrin gives when she turns her head, I feel like that, I feel like I was right about the emotion. The look was, oh, this is so annoying. Is she still there? Okay, good. Did she see me? Okay, now I have to pretend like I'm skulking. Oh, I pretend like I'm acting like I hope nobody sees me. I feel like that's what I was seeing there. Liandrin has predicted everything these kids will do, and that's because she's been manipulating them. I do think that there's definitely some sincerity there, especially with her feelings about Nynaeve, but she needed to get Nynaeve and Egwene to somewhere secret specifically where nobody would see them, so she needed Nynaeve to know where the secret tunnel was, but she couldn't say, hey, you want to see a cool tunnel? This is so perfect. I was trying to figure out how they were going to get Elaine to go with them. In the books, I have to say, I just kind of accept it, even though it's a little bit weird that Elaine joins them to go to Falma to try and save a boy that she's met for like 5 minutes. Like, part of her justification is she doesn't want to be left behind in the tower where she doesn't know who's Black Aja, but like, it's weird that she goes. And I mean, it's fine, I guess, because in these same books, we have Egwene, who, like, right after a Trolloc attacks her village, where they didn't even know that Trollocs existed before, she leaves home at 16. She's just like, hey, I want to go on an adventure, like, writes a note for her parents, hey, I'm living with the witch, and then she just goes. Like, this is a thing that happens in stories sometimes. You need a catalyst to get people going, and sometimes the catalyst isn't necessarily logical. So in the books, I kind of just accept this, but this, the way they've worked this, it's perfect. Liandrin thinks that she has everything, like she's put all the pieces in place. She thought she knew exactly what was going to happen, and she shows up ready, and Elaine is there. And she says it, you are a complication. She can't let Elaine go, because then it's going to be exposed. Like, when Egwene and Nynaeve are there, everybody's going to be like, well, what happened? And Elaine will be like, well, oh, she went with Liandrin, and like, it's going to expose her. But she can't, like, she has to take her with her. She has literally no choice. It's very neat and tidy. Can we also just take a moment to notice just how absolutely menacing Liandrin looks here? Just Lord have mercy. Scary. I talked about this in my reaction a bit, but Min's quote unquote gift is really just, it's awful. Like, of all the powers in the books, this is one I would not want, like, at all. The viewings that she has do not give her any ability, any advantage. She can't change the future. Like, okay, seeing nice things might be nice, but seeing awful things and knowing that there's nothing you can do to stop them, to prevent them, that's just a nightmare. What's weird, actually, when Liandrin told Min that Moiraine would have nothing over her anymore, I could not for the life of me think what she was talking about. Like, for the last week, I've in my head been going, the only thing Moiraine has is her viewings, which there's nothing Liandrin can do with that. I got close, but I never thought of what this is. And yeah, of course, what Min would want is to get rid of these visions. And Liandrin, she is a master manipulator. And again, I cannot wait to see non-book readers react to this scene, because that previous scene where Liandrin sort of blows them back against the wall and Elaine gets head trauma number 1. I mean, they all get head trauma, but, you know, Elaine is just constantly getting concussions. But okay, I want to see them reacting to this, because that scene, maybe they would think, I wonder why she did it. Maybe she has her reasons. I'm not sure. But this scene, this is the one that has to confirm to them where Liandrin's allegiances lie. And I want to see their faces. I can't wait. This is just, I love the way the jump cuts work here. It's such a cool way of conveying that this is Tel'aran'rhiod. Very, like, low budget, like, very lo-fi way, but it works so well. One of RJ's strengths, in my opinion, like one of his many, many strengths, is the way that he writes dreams and the dream world. I don't know, maybe this is different for everyone, but the way Robert Jordan writes dreams feels like my dreams to me. No other author I have ever read has captured that feeling the way RJ does. And these unsettling jump cuts, it gives me a lot, not quite exactly, not as much, but it gives me a lot of that same feeling that I get when I read those scenes in these books. Okay, so Ishii tells Min to bring Mat to Cairhien, which surprised me. I thought it was going to be Falma, which, okay, to be fair to myself, I did initially think that it was odd. Like, when, you know, we realized last episode, I think it was the last episode, that Liandrin had organized all of this, I assumed that she was trying to get Mat to Falma, and I was confused by it because I could not figure out why Liandrin would want Mat to be in the same place as the girls and, like, Perrin. I would think that she would want them separate, but I think I convinced myself over the course of this past week that it made sense because she was trying to get them all captured by the Shanshan. So when he said Cairhien, now I feel lost again. Does he want Matt to meet up with Rand, or like what did Matt do in Cairhien in the Great Hunt? Like nothing really. They went to the Barthanes' manor. He pretended to be a servant, looked around, and he was real salty about having to be a servant. Like not even having to do any work, just pretending to be a servant for like a couple of hours. But okay. And then they left the city, and then they portal stone to Tome and Head. So this is all new. I don't know what she wants with Matt and Cairhien. I don't know. What do you think? Okay, Rand wakes up here, and there's some weird sounds happening, but they aren't super loud. And this kind of tweaked my book reader brain. Did Rand sense the shadow spawn? Is that why he woke up? Okay, I love these fade effects. That's it. That's all I have to say. It's so good. No, okay, I want to keep looking at it. So I have a question for you. Who do you think sent this fade? Do you think it was Lanfear trying to get him to channel, or do you think it was another Forsaken? I have no idea. I don't really care because I just like looking at it. It's a cool fade. Cool fade is cool. This dialogue here about Selene or Lanfear's relationship with Lews Therin back in the day. I don't know how deep in the fandom anybody watching this particular video is, but it really reminded me of Matt Hatch from the Dusty Wheel YouTube channel, live call-in talk show. Check him out. His read of Lanfear. She is his favorite of the Forsaken. She might actually be his favorite character. I'm not sure, but whatever. He loves Lanfear. And of the Forsaken, I have to say she was not one I found particularly interesting. But when Matt Hatch gave his read, his interpretation of her on his channel, I'm trying to remember what the video was. Maybe it was just a video, like maybe we were just talking about Lanfear that week. I don't know. But it made me feel more intrigued by her. And he said some things about his interpretation of Lews Therin and Lanfear's relationship that I had never thought of. And this reminded me of that. Like what she says here reminded me of what Matt Hatch said. Now, I'd have to go back and find that episode of the Dusty Wheel to see how close it was to what Matt said, but it feels close. This moment, I've said it already, I think this episode is stellar. Like, you know, the Wolf Brothers stuff I found a little less, like, not up to the level of the rest of the episode, but this episode is stellar. Except for this moment. This is the only moment that fully pulled me out of the episode. Like, my immersion just went, what? I realized I forgot that I wasn't in the world, that my immersion was ruined by just this couple of seconds, because Alanna says here that Lan must not know who the prophecy is about. How? How can she think that Lan doesn't know it's about Lanfear? Lanfear's name is literally in the prophecy. Like, it's in the first line. Does she think that Lan doesn't know the old tongue? Like, does Sholin not know the... No, Sholin knows the old tongue because he translated it for Nynaeve in the first season. And, I mean, she knows Lan. He's, like, why would she think that he doesn't know the old tongue? Or maybe she thinks he can't read it? But then why was he staring at... Like, was he just staring at shapes on a page? Or does she think he's an idiot who's reading a very bloody prophecy with the name of one of the Forsaken in the first line, and she thinks that Lan would read a poem that starts Lanfear and go, I wonder who this is about. Like, does she think he's stupid? I don't know. This moment, it broke my immersion. It's very, very small. It's short. Like, seconds after this, I was fully back in. But just for this, I was just like, what? Okay, I have a question for you, Internet. Like, I have no idea what Lanfear was doing here or planning to do here. She's weaving something. We can't really see her weaves. We can see the effects of her weaves. That could be that we're in Rand's perspective and he can't see side her, but I'm pretty sure she's channeling the true power here, which of all of the Forsaken, Lanfear should be the one who has the most access to that because she's the one who found it. But anyway, okay. But more than that, beyond the fact that, okay, I can't see her weave, so it's probably the true power. What was she doing? Like, what was she going to do here? My initial thought was that she was going to change her appearance, but that didn't happen. Like, that should have happened pretty quickly. And she just keeps weaving around herself. Is she just trying to show Rand that she can channel too? I don't know. Like, what was she going to do? What is she weaving? Like, no, I know she's weaving the true power, but like, what was the effect of this weave supposed to be? I don't know. this. Okay, maybe I'm crazy here, but this sword bursting through her fully brought to mind that scene in season 1, episode 8, where the sword burst through Moiraine's mouth there. They're making so many parallels, like visual parallels between Moiraine and Lanfear, and it's fascinating. On a rewatch, I have to say, this scene, it almost made me laugh. Just on a meta level, like outside of the show. We have Moiraine, played by Rosamund Pike, slicing through someone's throat while in bed during grown-up sexy fun time. It's very, very meta. Like, but this time, it's not Rosamund Pike who got covered in blood, it's Rand. But, okay, I don't know, it's just very, very meta. Oh, if you don't know what I'm talking about Gone Girl, a movie Rosamund Pike was in where she slices somebody's throat during grown-up sexy fun time and she gets covered in blood. Like, the scene just reminded me of that. So, the Forsaken are immortal. Now, if you watch my reaction, you saw me being very, very confused by this, because in the books, the Forsaken are just people. They're people who are evil and have mad channeling skills, but they can die just like anyone else, and they can die from natural means. And they do in the books. I'm pretty sure Lan kills Demandred Demandred, I should say, with a sword. And the Dark One does bring them back to life sometimes, but they are not immortal. So this is a big change. And okay, right now I don't know how I feel about it. Like I'm on a scale. I'm leaning towards, I think this is good, but I'm not 100% on that side. I am reserving judgment. I can see both sides of this. The first being, I kind of like that the Forsaken are just people. They have human motivations and jealousies, foibles, what have you. Like, I like that, in the books we have Mazrim Time become one of the Forsaken. It's just a thing. They're just humans. Just humans who become that evil. And that's one of the reasons why they lose. They keep making human mistakes because they have human motivations and they have competing human goals. But, okay, on the other side, there are times in the books where I kind of forget to be scared of the Forsaken. They aren't always the biggest bad, which it's not a bad thing. There are tons of fascinating things going on in the world of the Wheel of Time, and it's good. I like that in the books, there are other problems beyond just the evil. There are human problems, right? Like the Shan-Chan and things like that are not capital E evil. It's just normal human bad behavior, normal human evilness, instead of like Dark One evil, that can cause as much of a problem for the side of the light as any like real big bad. But there is a point in the story where the Forsaken sort of stop feeling like a real threat because we keep beating them. Again, I don't necessarily miss them being a real threat in the books because there's so much going on. But I feel like I can understand the show wanting to make them something more formidable, something different. Plus, on the practical side, when you get a good actor playing the role, which they did, like for these two, like the Ishi actor, the Lanfear actor, it's like they're amazing. You don't want to have to switch them out, which is what happens in the books. And you would have to if you were having like being brought back in different bodies. And it's very, very cool in the books, but I feel like it would lose something in translation to a visual medium. I've said before, I as a person who's not particularly visual, I don't visualize characters when I read books, but I'd be curious for those of you who do, like for those of you who, when you read these books, you had like an image in your head of what they looked like. When the Forsaken are brought back in different bodies, did you actually switch the visuals in your head? Or did you just like make a mental note that their face was canonically different, but keep picturing them, keep thinking of them the same way? Because I feel like the second one is the more likely. We've already in the show had to change one character's face. I feel like doing it repeatedly would make it hard for the audience to swallow and also for the audience to keep track of like who is who. So yeah, I'm reserving judgment, but I feel like this will work. But I don't know, I'm keeping my eye on it. Like, I mean, of course I'm going to be watching this show, but I don't know. I think you know what I mean. Like this is something I'm going, ooh, okay, this could be good. But I'm watching you. And of course, I can't finish without talking about the saw. Look at the saw in her eyes. Like, look at that. Look at her pupils. Okay. There was a scene earlier on, I can't remember which episode, but where she grabs Rand by the neck and pushes him up against the wall. And her eyes looked kind of crazy. I actually went back and tried to watch it, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I thought, well, maybe she just does crazy eyes really, really well. But I'm pretty sure it was this. I'm pretty sure it was the saw that we were seeing. Saw, how did we pronounce that word? But anyway, that's what that is. Yes. So is the true power what's bringing her back? I don't know, but this is so cool. This is so cool. All right, so those are all of my thoughts, I think, on episode 4. What did you think? This episode, whoa. Okay, now that I've done this, I've recorded my video, I can go and start watching other people's reactions. I can't wait to see, because this was such a good episode. It was a banger. It was so good. But let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments below. And if you like my content and you want to support me, I do have a Patreon that is also linked in the description below. Thank you so much to my patrons. I couldn't do this without you. Really, really couldn't. Thank you. And with that, I am going to end this here. So please like, subscribe, and I'll see you, not sure when, but I'll see you at some point.